Hi there everyone! Welcome back to English with Katharine. So happy to see you again. How have you been? Have you had a good week? Today I've got something a little bit different for you. This isn't so much about culture. This isn't about seasons or Jane Austen. This is about your actual English. Here we have part 1 of a native English checklist that you can literally go through and tick off whether that's cool with you, not cool with you, completely confusing, and then you can look into it. I love these kind of things. If I was learning a language, I love a checklist. There's something satisfying about being able to organise everything you need to learn into a list. That's just how I roll. But what do we mean when we say native? I mean, I'm not a big fan of these buzzwords like native. But really, I guess if we unpack that word, what we mean is natural English. English that is used by natives, as in everyday life kind of English. And this checklist is just to make sure you're not making mistakes with grammar, really, and vocabulary, and things that you really should know in order to sound natural. They're really the essentials that you should really know. And if you don't know, there's still time for you to learn them. So why are we just wasting time? Let's get to it. We've got a lot to do. Number 1, should or have to. I hear people making mistakes with this a lot. Now, I'm not sure whether it's just that you don't know about the existence of have to, but a lot of you just use should all the time. Maybe you don't realise that have to means that you have no choice in the matter. You have to do it. It's not as strong as must. Must is the queen, the king of all of that. But have to is the one that we use most commonly. For example, if you're talking about your job responsibilities, you don't really say, I should do this, I should do that. You need to say, I have to. I have to look after the patients in the hospital. I have to make sure the building doesn't fall down. I have to teach a class of 32 students every day. So just be careful of the difference between should and have to. Should is an obligation. You're not going to get arrested if you don't do it. You should help an old lady if she falls over on the streets. You should give an old lady your chair on the train or the bus, but you don't have to. Should and have to are very different. Make sure you don't get caught out by that. Number 2, I've been. Now, this is the present perfect tense, but I like to just teach it by referencing experiences. So when we're talking about experiences in conversation, you need to be able to say, I've been. And you need to know the difference between I've been and I went. For example, I've been to Italy. That's an experience I've had in my life. Now, if I want to tell you some more details about that, I'm going to say, I went to Italy 2 years ago. I'm adding the time here. So I can't say I've been. You only use I've been just like that in a sentence. I've been to Italy. I've been to an opera. I've been to see Tenacious D live. They were amazing. And if you want to sound more native, be sure to use the contraction. Not I have, but I've. Okay? It's not wrong to say I have, of course, but I've just saves you a little bit of time, makes you sound a little bit more natural. Number 3, the second conditional. Do you know how important that is to us natives? We're always talking hypothetically, whimsically. If I had £1 million, I would do this. If I was an animal, I would be a dolphin. Whatever it is, it's going to come up in conversation, especially after a few drinks at a dinner party. You're going to need to know how to use the second conditional. So, the construction, if plus verb to, which if you didn't already know how I teach grammar, I like to call them verb 1, verb 2, verb 3. So obviously the irregular verbs, it's very important to learn the verb 2 and the verb 3 for those. So the second and third form, for example, see, saw, seen, write, wrote, written, read, read, read. You get the idea. So we need if plus verb 2 plus would plus verb 1. So if I was a millionaire, I would travel the world. What would you do if you were a millionaire or if you won the lottery? But sometimes we just use the second conditional in everyday conversation. Like, if I had more time, I would learn the guitar. If I had more time, I would learn Spanish. If I had more time, I would go for more walks. All of these things are true of me. Number 4, expressions with mind. Okay, we have a lot of expressions using mind. Do you mind? Would you mind? I haven't made up my mind yet. Do something to take your mind off it. Mind you. Now, it's just best to learn them, okay? I'm going to teach you 2 today, so you can get started with it right away. So sometimes we ask, do you mind having to do that to someone? Say they have a really long commute to work, okay? And you want to ask them, is that a problem for them or is it okay? You can say, do you mind having to go by bus to work? You can say, do you mind having to commute for 4 hours every day? Do you mind having to go by bus? So it comes with an ing word afterwards. So we say, do you mind having, or do you mind taking? Do you mind doing something? Okay. So we ask that a lot in conversation. We've also got, have you made up your mind yet? To make up your mind is to decide on something, usually a big decision, whether to quit your job, whether to relocate, whether to have another baby, whether to get married. I don't know what it is, but you have to make up your mind. You've got to decide sooner or later. Number 5, to have something done. To have something done. Okay, do you know this passive? Okay, it's a form of passive voice, but it's when someone else does a job for you. Now, this is something people make mistakes with. For example, if you have your hair cut, I hear people saying, I cut my hair. No, you didn't cut your hair. Someone else cut your hair. So you've got to be able to easily say that in a sentence in conversation. You know, you can't be thinking, oh no, what's the construction? I didn't cut my hair. Someone else did. Try to learn the construction, practice it until you've got it. So we use have here. We have a lot in British English, you will notice, and grammar is no exception. So to have a job done. So I had my hair cut. So we need verb 3 at the end. I had my hair cut. I had my nails done. We can use done here, so the verb do. Or we can say manicured. That would be the verb. So I had my nails manicured. I had my eyebrows done. I've never actually done anything to my eyebrows. That terrifies me, but many people do. I had my car washed. I had my teeth cleaned by a professional, a dentist. I had my house insured. I had my arm x-rayed. There are many things that you need to remember this grammar for. In life, people do jobs for you. You can't do everything yourself. So this grammar is very important. Number 6, have. The use of have. We like have. We really like it. We love it, in fact. We use it for everything. We have a shower. We have a picnic. We have a holiday. We have lunch, dinner, breakfast. We have a coffee. We have everything. An x-ray. I don't know. I can't think of any more examples, but there are many. So I've talked about this in another video. We don't actually use the real verbs for things sometimes. For example, eat and drink. We're more likely to say have. So I had lunch. I didn't eat lunch. I had dinner. I had a coffee. I didn't drink a coffee. No. And if you're interested to know a bit more about that, check out my video about what natives don't say. I will link it in the description box. Number 7, might. Might. This is a little, very useful word, might. So it's a modal verb, as you probably know. And I believe that we don't use this enough. I don't hear it being used by my students. You guys are very likely to say, maybe I will, but you don't often use might. So might just means there's a possibility of you doing something. And there's also a possibility that you will not do that thing. But it's a really, really clear and easy way to say that there's a possibility of something happening. So I might go out tonight. I might not. I might have a coffee later. I might not. You don't always have to say I might not. But if someone says, what are your plans for the weekend? You can say, I might go to the seaside. I might visit my grandparents. You haven't decided yet, okay? So it's really useful for discussing plans about bigger things in life or what you're doing on the weekend. Number 8, the difference between I used to and I am used to. Make sure you know the difference, and also make sure you can use these really, really easily in conversation, because this comes up all the time. This is really essential stuff. I use both of these all the time. So just to tell you, I used to is something I did in the past, but I don't do it anymore. I used to live in Sussex. I used to play hockey at school. I don't anymore. I used to learn Spanish. Sadly, not anymore. And I used to work as a singing teacher. I don't anymore. Just a little tiny word can change the whole meaning. So I am used to is completely different. If you say I'm used to that, that means you're comfortable with that. You're familiar with that. Usually it's something that's quite strange for you at first. It's different. Maybe a big change has happened in your life. For example, and we use get with this very often, when I moved to Spain, it took me a long time to get used to the weather. It was very humid and I found that it was so different to what I was used to, and it was just really, really hard for me to adapt to. Another example, some of my students say when they come to the UK, they take a long time to get used to the taste of the tap water, which is really interesting. Apparently it's quite different, especially in London. In Scotland, they have like the nicest tap water ever. I remember when Tom told me when he first came down to London and he tried the tap water, he was like, "What is this?" I think the Scottish tap water is literally just from the mountains, so it's just fresh and amazing. So just be careful with the difference between these two and you'll be great. Number 9, the first conditional. We have another conditional here. Now, all of the conditionals are important, of course, but I'm just doing the second and the first in this video because they really are useful for everyday English. So we need the first conditional for when we're talking about plans. So we are always usually talking about that in some way or another. We're usually asking what our plans are for Christmas or summer, when are we next having a holiday, that kind of thing. And the first conditional just really helps you to put that in a sentence. If something happens, something will result. For example, if I get some time off, I will visit my granny. Okay, so that's a plan I've just told you about using the first conditional. I needed to use that because in order for me to see my granny, I have to get time off. So one thing has to happen for the other thing to result. And that's the great thing about the first conditional. It's very logical. It's very possible. That doesn't always happen with learning English. It's often quite confusing and doesn't make any sense. But at least this one does. So we need if plus verb 1, and then we need will and verb 1 again in the second part. So if it rains on the weekend, I will stay at home. If it's sunny at or on the weekend, I will go to the park. Now, you notice I said at and on the weekend. I use these interchangeably. Some people ask me about that, by the way, and I've actually forgotten which one's which, because American English is slowly coming into British English, very sort of slowly trickling in with phrasal verbs and certain vocabulary. And in and on the weekend, on and at the weekend just seem to be both very acceptable. So I really wouldn't worry about that. Number 10. Wish. Now, I have spoken about this a few times. You're probably very bored of me talking about this. But if you really want to sound natural and native, you got to use wish. This is all wrapped up in our culture. And I did say I wasn't going to talk about culture today, but it's impossible to avoid it. We're always wishing things. Okay, so in other languages, wish is used more like, I wish you a good day, or best wishes. We use it more in just everyday conversation to lament on how we wished that things were different. Okay, so impossible things, we wish that they were possible. And we have to use the past tense with wish. So just be really careful with that. It's incredibly important to remember that, because otherwise it will sound a bit strange. In other words, it's hypothetical. It's something you are dreaming about. So when it's raining outside, you will hear a lot of native English people saying, "Oh, I wish it would stop raining. I wish it would stop raining. Oh, I wish I had a cat." I actually said that yesterday because I've been really dreaming about having a cat lately. And I just said that out loud. I wish I had a cat. We're very expressive people here, and we will tell you how we feel. Maybe not on everything, but we will just tell you how we're feeling in that moment, because we will just announce it to you, sometimes without any warning at all. So I wish I had a cat. I also wish I had a dog. I also wish I had a big house in the countryside. But we can all dream. That's why wish is very useful. So that's all I've got for you today. I loved teaching you these essential grammar, vocabulary things for sounding more natural or native. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. Maybe tell me in the comments below. Hit subscribe if you would be so lovely today. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you already next Friday. I've got another video for you already lined up, so I hope you're excited. See you next time. Bye.